get into it. Let's choose this adventure. So I've picked hyperspace because I thought, number one, it's kind of a weird illustration here. Uh, what appears to be Chevy Chase, sort of in an unflattering drawing on the front of the book here, and space aliens, and also, so we got it all. But here's our entrance, right? And if you can't see your screen because you're driving or something like that, I'll read it to you. So here's how we start. Your tiny craft sits down with a sharp jolt. You lie dazed for a few minutes before you can pull yourself together, and by the time you crawl through the hatch, your pod is already surrounded by giant, half-human creatures with huge forked hands. They've got some thoughts, a lot of them, about politics, why the Seinfeld finale wasn't that great, but most of all, they have thoughts about safety. So that's where we are, right? Giant, half-human creatures, and they just can't wait to talk to us about safety. So in a true choose-your-own-adventure form, we've got choices. So if we'd like to talk to these alien creatures about critical controls, and I'm already excited, this sounds exciting, but if we'd like to do that, we're going to go to page 38. If we want to talk to them about Hop versus whatever the heck these aliens have been up to, we can turn to page 47. If we'd rather run back up the ladder through the hatch and lock ourselves in our pod, that's an option as well. We're going to go to page 52. No one's running back up the ladder. It's shocking because the pod was so comfortable. Page 38, we're going to go to. So check this out. We're going to see if this works. Now, I have to tell you, there is no page 38. I didn't write you a book. I'm sorry. It's really sort of more like slide 4, but that's fine. Okay, so here we go. Page 38. We want to talk about critical controls. So here's the aliens, right? They want to know, hey, look, man, when you say critical, like how critical are we talking? So this idea of critical controls, or even controls save lives, right? The sort of sixth principle of HOP, if you're familiar, 5 principles, sort of a Todd Conklin, probably the most well-known person publishing on those, this kind of emerging sixth principle, controls save lives, a book and maybe some other information coming out of Learning Teams Inc. and Brent and the gang down there. There's, I think, a lot of confusion, and Aaron, if you're on here, credit to you for bringing this up in a conversation the other day as well. I think there's a lot of confusion about what in the world that means. Now, critical controls by itself doesn't sound all that confusing. In your experience, what's critical? This is a test of if you can get your microphone off. What makes something critical?
For us, it's anything that could lead to disabling injury or fatality.
Okay. Dead or disabled, which I think if you're the recipient of dead or disabled, you would agree that's critical. You don't want those things. I think about it as sort of the must go right things that we do. And there's a couple different ways that folks look at this. And I don't want to tell you that your way is right or wrong. I tend to think about it as those steps that must go right. There's another way of kind of thinking about this as an outcome, right? And that outcome is really gnarly, and we back up through those steps that get us there. Gosh, what if this happened and then this exploded and then there's an elementary school over here? I mean, worst credible still gets us down this path of a whole lot of things sounding critical. And then it becomes pretty darn tough to prioritize. So I think maybe a way to get to this without getting microscopic first is that as we evaluate criticality and critical controls, anything we consider in that bucket has to be something that supports our ability to make a decision. If there's no decision that I can make, buy this piece of equipment, don't buy it. Take away this piece of equipment so we avoid that hazard altogether, or leave it there or guard it or whatever. These are all decisions, right? If we're not supporting decision making, helping people to be right more often, then we're probably heading down this path that stops making a whole lot of sense. Criticality means something different, not just in the nuclear industry. It means something different in any industry when I walk around the building. If I go to enterprise risk management, folks, criticality means something different. Appetite for risk means it means something absolutely different than those of us typically sitting on here. If I go to the maritime industry versus healthcare, criticality certainly has a different connotation. When I talk about critical in a healthcare environment, it means something different, right? The picture in someone's head is different. And I think that's another issue that we run into with implementation, as we're starting to talk about things that are unclear to the user in a lot of ways. But what I can tell you is across industries, part of our issues come from that mismatch in understanding what is critical. And I think a key to that, or a key that we see to that, is knowing how to get the right people in the room for that decision making. What's critical in accounting is a whole lot different than critical at the point of work being done, but both of those things are important. I would agree wholeheartedly with the statement that controls save lives. I think it would be weird not to. Um, I would agree wholeheartedly that we should be able to identify, or we can identify maybe some controls that are more critical than others, that are a single point failure, where there's no redundancy, where it has to go perfectly, or things go to heck in a handbasket pretty quickly. I think asking people at the point of work, and I say point of work, not frontline. I say that on purpose, right? Because the point of work happens everywhere at every level of organization. But asking somebody at the point of work, what has to go right today, or it all goes wrong, is going to get you what's critical. And I don't think you have to make it red, yellow, and green. I think your answer is there. And they're sort of backing into categorization and classification a lot of times as a paperwork exercise to justify the story somebody's already shared.
All right.
So maybe my biggest piece of advice on this whole concept of critical controls is is to take it for what it is when people tell you, but to make sure before you have that conversation that when we say critical, we all mean something really similar. And we're all talking in the same way. I think page 47 was our runner up. Does that sound right, Bob?
Good enough for me.
Okay, I'm doing it. All right. So we've said we were going to talk to our alien friends about, we're asking them about hop versus whatever they're doing. We don't know. We've just met these guys. They're terrifying with their forked hands and all of that. And, aliens included, I've yet to find people that like being told that they're wrong. And as we introduce hop, it's sort of hard to avoid that. Steve, I think you had a comment earlier that said, look, sometimes it's easier to introduce something tangible before we get into the theory of this. But we're talking theory right now. And we said, look, we want to talk to these guys about hop versus whatever the heck they're doing. We don't know what they're doing. But where do you start with hop typically? If we're not supporting someone's ability to make a better decision because of it, we're often wasting their time. Right. And you can get down, you can call safety anything you want, right? It is an emergent property of a system. It is the presence of capacity. We hope we're not killing people right and left, right? All of these things are important. But the way that we get to that is we make better decisions or write more often. And so if we're doing all of these things and we're not allowing people to go to work and make better decisions because of it, I think we're going to find ourselves with a lost cause.